Mike. Everyone standing around him. The tallest guy in the room. I'm talking about the backstory of Riverworks that most people don't know. Interesting that I'm starting out with a picture of the Trico building. You may recall a few years ago there was a bit of a hubbub about the potential of losing this building. There was the medical campus wanted to knock it down. Other people had different ideas about it. Eventually, that led me to meeting somebody critical of Riverworks. The next building was also a preservation bit of a brouhaha, but this one wasn't saved. This is the Erie Freight House building, introduced to me by Julie Barrett O'Neill, formerly of Buffalo Riverworks, and she introduced me to Earl Ketry. At the Trico building, I met John Williams, who owns Ontario Specialty Contracting, and also the site that is currently at Riverworks. And when we tried to restore the freight house, and it eventually became unsuccessful, and that building was gone, having met John, he took me around that, because he was the designated demo contractor for the Trico building. And when I met with him at his office, he walked me around the site and showed me what he had. He said, I'm thinking of redeveloping this someday. Do you have any ideas? And I told him, well, that's kind of a dangerous thing to ask me. But, and a year later, I introduced Earl Ketry to John, and the rest became history. And this was in 2013. I met Earl a few months before that, and we launched into Riverworks at light speed, like nothing I've ever seen before. We did take a look at the history of the site, but we mostly dealt with the existing artifacts that remained from years of decay of the old GLF grain operation. But we loved what we saw with the history of the Buffalo River, the source of the wealth of Buffalo, but obviously had seen better days. I discovered this area when I was about 14 in a little 14-foot aluminum boat one day, and I thought I was lost and didn't know where I was and thought I'd gone into Neverland. A couple of years later, I went with my friends with a slightly bigger boat. We used to water ski in the late 60s because the water was always flat, but somehow I survived. Very quickly, we launched into the project, and armed with a couple of these sketches that I did of what we might be able to do there, including taking a look at actually relocating that Erie Freight House here. It's shown in a couple of these early concept drawings. And these drawings that were done by my good friend Mike Anderson at Architectural Resources, who launched his private practice with this project. We went to the city of Buffalo and Brendan Mahaffey and said, "This, we want to do this." And he sort of nodded politely and said, "That's really interesting. Good luck." But he did give us a building permit to build a couple of ice rinks because we had this relationship with Labatt Blue, and they wanted to put their pond hockey tournament here. So we launched into this project with the idea of turning this waterfront summertime center into a year-round facility with the use of ice and roller derby and all the other things you've seen there. This is our groundbreaking ceremony. We didn't have any time for pomp and circumstances or politicians or golden shovels. We just kind of went at it, mostly because the city had given us a building permit before we had zoning and planning approval. But don't tell anybody that, because they don't really like that. But that caused a little bit of a stir with our neighbors. General Mills and ADM suddenly caught wind of what we were doing, even though I went to them beforehand and had all that good, feel-good conversation about what we were doing, and they nodded and said, "That's really interesting, good luck." But they didn't think we'd actually do it. They decided they didn't like it, but we had already spent a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of fighting over finally getting the approval. But the city stuck by us, and we made it happen. Here's our buddy Mike testing the strength of our structural steel going in there. Turned out that piece of steel wasn't quite strong enough. There's a shot of me in there that I threw in there because I was driving this huge steamroller, flattening out the surface for the ice hockey at the time when General Mills was putting their corporate lawyers and trying to shut us down, and I had a little stressful Christmas thing. And nothing like driving a 10-ton steamroller to get some of your aggressions out. But the pond hockey went off without a hitch. We only had bare ice at that time. Nothing else was done. Later on that summer, we just decided to paint these silos blue without telling anybody, and put a label on there. We do have a building permit for this one. But it immediately went viral, and it went global. It was seen all over the world, that shot. And in the very early days, we did some kind of crazy events in a half-finished space. Here's the mayor having a grand old time at the Mini Cooper event, where we had 500 Mini Coopers and about 3,000 people there. And we had half of a roof over the rink area and not much else. Now Riverworks has become kind of a magnet for destinations of all stripes. I'm not really showing you what it looks like much today. If you haven't been there, shame on you. You got to get there because there's something going on there, and it's different every day. And it's really been a remarkable attraction that people have had. This is Earl and me sort of toasting each other on the first contact when we had real bathrooms and heat and a dry roof. And the shot up on the top left, or top right, is one of my favorites. This is our steel erection crew who were working 10, 12-hour days in sub-zero weather, building this thing. When we got the ice going, they actually took time at the end of the day before they went home to do a few rounds of curling. It was an amazing experience. It happened in less than a year from the time we first conceived of it to actually opening our doors. And right now we're in the middle of putting in our zip line, so more to come down there.